What's Asbury's place in the history of the District of Columbia as you see it?
um, an historic landmark. We are still very well regarded here in the city, I believe. We're certainly well regarded across the nation. As I travel with my current part-time paid job, people are always asking me what Asbury's doing, how are we doing, who are the pastors. Now, they're very excited that we have our first female pastor, Reverend Dr. Iantha Mills, who has a wonderful reputation in our conference, both here and in other parts of the country. So I think Asbury still holds a good place in the city, that people still look to us to be a leading force in the city. One of the other exciting things that I'd like to just talk about is a partnership that has just formed between Asbury, Foundry, and John Wesley AME Zion Church. And that grew out of Foundry's 200-year celebration, and we were invited to be a part of that because many folks know that we came from Foundry, that Foundry gave us money to start this church, and we paid every last nickel back to the folks who loaned the money to us. So we started out working together at the 200-year anniversary. We were invited to be a part of that. But we've had several conversations over the years about wanting to do more, and this was between Asbury and Foundry. So one of the members at Foundry reached out to John Wesley AME Zion, which also came from Asbury.
And where are they located?
They're at 14th and Cochran. So we formed a partnership between Asbury, Foundry, and John Wesley AME Zion. We bonded over a series of workshops we did around Howard Thurman and his work with the beloved community. But I was in a meeting last night looking at ways that we can continue to stay together and grow more, learn more about each other, fellowship more, share a lot of our share more around our histories, share more about some of the things that we're doing together.
We just talked about Reverend Mills and how she's the first female senior pastor the church has had.
Yes.
Have there been other female leaders or in other positions, organists, any sorts of things that stick in your memory?
Well, yes. One was Pauline Wilkins. We've always had associate pastors who were women. The mother of Alexis Brown, Reverend Kay
Alexis is
Alber.
currently
Alexis is currently the pastor, the campus minister at Howard University, and also now the organizer and preacher for the bridge service in the afternoon. Her mother was an associate pastor here, Reverend Kay Albury. It used to be Kay Albury Smith. And everyone kept saying, you know Alexis, and I didn't. So Kay was here one day, and she said, Carol, you don't know Alexis because Alexis was born after I left here. So Kay is still an active clergy person. She just retired, but has assumed responsibility for a small church.
So she would have been here in the 60s?
Later than that, I think.
Later than the 60s?
Later in the 60s. In the 70s, 80s maybe, 70s or 80s.
And she was one of the first female associate
Oh, no,
pastors?
we've had several female associate pastors. The one that I remember probably who was here with Reverend Frank Williams, who was a student, is Reverend Mamie Williams. So at that time, Reverend Mamie Williams was, I believe, a student pastor.
Any relation to?
No, not really. And then Bishop Marcus Matthews was, I don't know whether he was an intern or a student, but I met him over 40 years ago when they were all on the staff with Reverend Frank Williams. But we've had several women. The late Reverend Pauline Wilkins, Reverend Carmen Collette. We've had several, but Reverend Mills is the first female senior pastor that we had. And it's historic that she is here at this point in time.
Does the United Methodist Church have a history with female pastors, or hasn't been quick to the table? with that?
I think they've been quick to the table. As long as I can remember, there have been female pastors in the churches. I have quite a few friends who are female pastors who serve churches around the conference. Many of them are in suburban Baltimore, in suburban Maryland. But of the large churches in D.C., Reverend Mills is the only senior pastor currently, African American, of the larger churches.